Great. Okay, well, let's get going. Welcome everybody to our very first QPS, otherwise known as the Quarterly Pinecone Summit. This is not to be confused with queries per second. So if you know, you know. Hopefully you enjoyed the joke there. But today we are joined by three of our product managers. We have Tej, Nathan, and Ansham on the call today. They will be sharing with us what they've been working on throughout this quarter, Q2, and they'll also be sharing a glimpse into what they'll be working on to deliver for the upcoming quarter, Q3. These webinars will be happening every quarter, so stay tuned for more of these updates. But just to reiterate, this will just be a glimpse into what's been delivered and what's upcoming, to have a more comprehensive look of what we've been building, what we're working on. Please make sure to reference our monthly product updates, and then also our monthly release notes. You want to jump to the next slide? Okay, great. So quickly going to run through the agenda for what we'll be covering today. So we're going to start out with a brief roadmap overview for Q2 and Q3. Then we'll turn it over to the three PMs, Tej, Ansham, and Nathan. Each of them will go through some of the items that they've been working on this quarter and next quarter. And we'll follow that up with a live demo for Pinecone Assistant, which just was launched yesterday in beta, and that will be driven by Nathan. And at the end, we'll have plenty of time, hopefully, for Q&A. And just to note, we do have the Q&A option in the Zoom webinar. So if you do have questions during the presentation, please put them there and we'll try to get to them while everyone is speaking. But for anything that we don't get to during the presentation, we'll address at the end. And also, as a reminder, the presentation, this is being recorded and will be shared out via email after the presentation to all the attendees, and then also posted on our YouTube. Okay, great. So just giving a quick glimpse into our roadmap. So just to kind of set the stage and give some context on our focus areas as a product as a whole. When thinking about our roadmap and how to keep improving our product and keep delivering this world-class experience for our users, we have these three themes that we keep in mind. So being able to help our users build remarkably better AI applications with consistently fast and accurate answers, making AI applications more secure and commercially viable, and then third, helping enable our developers to have faster time to value regardless of scale. Move to the next slide. Okay, great. And so as you can see, we've kind of broken out our launches and our different features into these three buckets. This is kind of a glimpse into what we'll be talking about today. It's not comprehensive. And like I mentioned, we do have other resources that can give you more information on what we're working on, like our release notes, our monthly product update blogs. But this is just a glimpse into the roadmap for Q2 and what's upcoming in the quarter and what's going to be talked about today by our three product managers. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to, I believe, Tej is going to be up first to talk about what he's been working on.
Yeah, thanks, Gibbs. Yeah, Nathan, if you go on. Yeah, so at Pinecone, we've really been focusing on like our developer experience historically as a company, but really doubling down on that investment this quarter. To us, it means three core tenets. One is really enabling users to auto scale without resource provisioning. Don't need to think about your infrastructure, just go ahead and build the AI applications that you want to. To do that, we're also focused on delivering all the SDKs and APIs, versioning that developers need to build AI. For that specifically, alongside our Python and Node clients, we released a Java client last quarter, and we'll be releasing a Go SDK in the coming weeks. This quarter, we're also releasing a CLI to help developers get started quicker and manage their indexes and data. And we're also going to be publishing our open API spec for anyone to build on top of. So really just opening up the ecosystem there. And on that note, for those who missed it, by the way, while redesigning our console, we rebuilt our docs from the ground up. And as part of that, we added a section of guides for our 25+ partner integrations. And this quarter really doubling down on that ecosystem, making it easier for partners to integrate with Pinecone through various features, but also releasing a host of native experiences that I'll get into. So for me, I'm just going to really go through our DevX improvements and focus and see what we shipped last quarter and focusing on this quarter. So on that first piece about dedicating to auto scale without resource provisioning, serverless was a huge step there. And last quarter, we moved our starter tier over to serverless to make it easier for everyone to get started and experience those benefits from the get-go. So with serverless's efficiencies from architecture and algorithms, we can now offer 3x more capacity, around 2 GB of data. If you remember from our previous starter tier, that was around 100K vectors at 1536 dimensions and 500 bytes of metadata. Now it's 300K vectors at the same dimension and metadata size. And that's from benefit of serverless's efficiencies around storage and read and write separation. On that note, we now also have 5x the number of indexes you can have. We see many of our customers experimenting with many use cases on Pinecone, ranging from RAG, semantic search, hybrid search, classification, and others. And we want to enable you on the free tier to be able to try them all out with up to 5 indexes. And then the other piece is as you scale, we make it very seamless to continue upwards without any downtime, without needing to make a new index, without needing to create a new project. You can just put in your payment method and get started to scale. So the benefits of being able to forget about resource allocation and understanding number of pods and throughput goes away with serverless, starting from the first index that you create. On that note, it's not only easier for new users to get started with serverless, but we're also making it easier for existing users that run pod-based indexes in production. We're going to make it a one-click experience for you to be able to create a copy of your pod-based index and load it to a serverless one. With some minor changes to code, this one click enables you to just immediately experience the cost and scaling benefits of serverless. So this feature is actually currently in public preview and available to users with pod indexes hosted in AWS and GCP with support for Azure coming soon. So during this public preview phase, the actual typical serverless write units will not be applied. So get started now if you meet the criteria and experience the benefits of serverless. On that note, this quarter, we're also investing in making it easier to monitor your performance and cost. One way is by launching the Prometheus Metrics API to let users like you programmatically retrieve data on metrics like vector count, request latency, usage in terms of read units, write units, storage, and other observability metrics that are important to monitor your production application. Alongside this API, we're improving the index metrics in the console, really allowing you to deep dive into current and historical performance, view graphs and latency, and get a better understanding of how your database is performing. Aside from performance, which is definitely an important factor to monitor, when building production AI applications, cost is a very big factor. We're going to make it very easy for you to attribute your unit economics, really build towards a high ROI Gen AI application by enabling usage and cost exports for you to get granular understanding of how Pinecone is supporting your bottom line and enabling you to build like cost-efficient Gen AI applications. So the other big piece for this quarter is really tightly integrating Pinecone with where your data lives. We know that many Pinecone customers store their source application data or pre-computed vectors in cloud storage and build pipelines into Pinecone for use cases, as I mentioned before, across RAG, search, classification, and others. So this quarter, we're really making it easier to use Pinecone alongside your data that lives in S3, GCS, or Azure Blob. Via the API or console, you'll be able to create an integration with your storage provider and initiate operations. The first operation we're starting with is bulk import, which will enable you to load a large scale of embeddings at the fraction of the cost of a typical upsert request. This is coming in the next month or so, and we're really excited to get your feedback on that first type of operation as we explore and build out the total operation suite that we're going to offer alongside cloud storage, like exports and syncing. And then finally, what I'm most excited about in terms of improving our developer experience and enabling users to really build quickly and get Gen AI apps in production is Pinecone Inference. So with this, through a single API, you'll now be able to easily embed, manage, and query your data. What we're starting with is by providing a fully managed service to use top embedding and re-ranking models hosted on Pinecone's enterprise-grade infrastructure. Currently, we're already in public preview, and all users can try out our first hosted model, which is multilingual E5 large. In the future, though, other than offering more models, multimodal ones too, re-rankers as well, we're going to more deeply integrate Pinecone inference into data plane requests like upsert or query. So that not only will make it easier to work with your data through one call, but it's also going to return lower end-to-end latencies for your application. So Pinecone inference is out right now in public preview. Give it a try. All users can get started now. So there's an exciting quarter ahead for developers building with Pinecone as we make it easier and quicker to build and scale your AI applications. From getting started with serverless to building out your Gen AI application production using integrations with your storage provider and bringing your embedding model into Pinecone for a one-stop embed service. But we're also investing into security, availability, and performance. So I'll hand it off to Anshum to tell you all about that.
Hey everybody, I'm Anshum. I work as a product manager here at Pinecone, and I'll be talking about building more secure applications with Pinecone. So the very first thing that I'd like to talk about is our current security posture, right? I think security is super important when we're building Gen AI applications. And we at Pinecone take, great efforts to make sure customer data is always secured. Stored separately, even though serverless is a multi-tenant environment, every customer's data is stored separately. It is encrypted at rest and in transit. We never use any of the data other than to service API calls. There is very strict role-based access control for service engineers internally. And we want to extend these security features out into a much more comprehensive set of features that let you adopt Pinecone with much more confidence, right? And some of those features being customer managed encryption keys for our enterprise feature, for enterprise customers that will allow customers to manage their own encryption keys. And we also are going to talk about private endpoints for AWS Private Link. And there are other compliance and regulations that we also adhere to. We are GDPR ready. We are able to comply with the GDPR regulation. We are SOC 2 Type 2 certified, and we also comply with HIPAA regulations. There are other parts of our product that also allow you to enforce your security posture. So for example, single sign-on, you can manage organizations, users, projects, and API keys separately. And there's more to talk about there in terms of RBAC as well. So let's get started very quickly with something that we shipped recently. This is in public preview. This is private endpoints for Pinecone serverless. So for those of you who may not know what private endpoints is, private endpoints is a Pinecone offering that allows you to connect your AWS VPC directly with Pinecone's VPC over AWS network, right? Essentially, this works over AWS Private Link, and it's available in all serverless AWS regions. We are also aiming to announce GCP Private Service Connect and Azure Private Link after we make serverless available in those regions. Super easy to set up. You can set it up through Pinecone console. Today, we will also be releasing API access so that you can configure it via Terraform or through infrastructure as a code, whatever platform you prefer. And what this allows you to do is it configures all data plane requests. Think about upserts, queries, and such that traverse over AWS network only. It allows you to secure your VPC in a way that you don't have to allow internet access through your firewalls. It also makes sure that this traffic is never exposed to internet traffic, and makes your Pinecone environment much more secure as well, right? So there's a little diagram here. It basically says The private endpoints work over particular regions, so they're separated out by specific regions. So if you have VPC1, you can connect it to multiple indexes in the same region by setting up a private endpoint in that region. And if you have another region that you're working out of, you might want to set up another private endpoint in that region. So it's available to all enterprise users. There is no additional fee today for private endpoints. You can set up multiple private endpoints per project. And as I said, you might want to do that because you might have multiple regions or you might have multiple VPCs. So that's private endpoints. Try it out today. It's already available in public preview, and we'd love to hear your feedback after you try it out. So what else are we doing on security, right? So we are investing quite a bit of effort on role-based access control. We'll allow users to enforce RBAC on users and API keys. So think about the sort of permissions that users might want to have, separated out by different types of actions that they can take. So those actions being create an index, delete an index, being able to upsert data to an index, and that would be index level permissions. But you can also sort of think about like what users can do on project. Can you add more users? We also see that most of our users access their data via API keys, right? And it's important that those API keys are scoped to the right permissions. So we'll be allowing users to set up permissions for API keys as well. Another exciting thing that we're working on is backups and restores. Think about disaster recovery that could happen. When we talk about disaster recovery, essentially we're trying to protect ourselves from manual or systemic disasters. So if somebody were to do something wrong, some bad data, or if system goes down, region goes down, right? You want to have backups of your data that you've created in Pinecone indexes. So we will allow users to easily create backups and be able to restore from those backups. And we have a very ambitious roadmap here, potentially also doing point-in-time restores. So keep a lookout for that, and this is going to be out in a couple of months. Finally, very excited to announce that we'll also have GCP and Azure availability for serverless in public preview in the first half of July. So we are very close to getting it out. The first few regions will be in US. So specifically for GCP, we are targeting US Central 1, and for Azure, we're targeting US East. So we are very excited to get Pinecone being available on GCP and Azure as well. And we'd be extremely excited once we release it for you to be able to use it. Send us your feedback. If there are other requests, such as regional requests, we'd love to hear them as well. So that is it, I think, for security. And I'm going to hand it over to Nathan, who will talk about building better applications.
Thanks, Sancham. All right, so I'm Nathan. I'm going to be talking a little bit about how you can build better applications on top of Pinecone. So when we talk to our users, we kind of hear the same story over and over again, that building GenAI apps remains kind of very, very difficult. A number of reasons. The first one is getting knowledge to be available to your GenAI apps is still quite difficult. Simply getting the knowledge to be accessible. Creating a way to make this knowledge available, i.e. finding a way to make external knowledge available to the GenAI application in real time remains tedious and very complicated. And finally, once you've built the pipelines to be able to make this type of information available to your GenAI app, it's still quite difficult to find the right knowledge consistently. So quality remains a paramount problem for even those GenAI applications that have been built in production. So this week, we introduced the Pinecone Assistant in beta. So Assistant is a managed service, fully managed by Pinecone, that gives you a state-of-the-art LLM with access to your private information. So this guarantees kind of three things. First, that you can get really high quality results. So you get generated answers that are grounded with your own data. You get a simple and easy to use interface. You can upload PDFs and text files and start building your AI app very quickly using our API. And you get privacy and security. So Ansham talked about all of the things we do in Pinecone around privacy and security, but you get full control over your data. So the uploaded files are only available to the AI application based on how you provide them, and you can always revoke that access when needed. So at the highest level, let's talk about the assistant architecture. There's a lot going on in this diagram, but it's easy to think about it in terms of two major flows. First is the document flow, where external knowledge is ingested. It is kind of parsed and processed and put through our proprietary knowledge representation. We handle things like chunking and embedding. And we also create the indexing of this data into the Pinecone VectorDB. And on the other side, we have the kind of user and query flow, where a user provides a query to the assistant, and the assistant then goes to plan how to answer that query. It does a series of retrieval steps. It handles the synthesis of that retrieval into an answer, and it finally kind of generates the end user answer and returns it to the user. And so both of these flows are built on a set of models, everything from foundational models like your LLMs to embedding models to ranking models to improve kind of information retrieval quality. So the assistant today, it launched on Tuesday via a beta and a waitlist. So there'll be more information on that coming up a little bit later. But today it supports PDF and text documents. We provide a Python SDK, an API, and a console UI for you to be able to test easily and demo. And it provides a chat-compatible interface. So if you've built chat applications before, you should be able to migrate to an assistant endpoint without too much kind of coding changes. And you can see the little code block we've included here shows us how easy it is to get an assistant set up. You kind of provide a Pinecone API key, create an assistant, upload some documents, and then you can start querying. Okay, so I'm going to try to do a little bit of a live demo here. So from the Pinecone landing page, I just have to log in. I go to the Assistants tab here on the left. I create a kind of assistant. And I'll see that the assistant has been successfully created, and I end on the landing page. It'll ask me to kind of drop files in. Here, I'm going to be dropping in a few files that are earnings reports from Coke and Pepsi from the most recent quarter. Click import. And what is happening here is that kind of left process that I described, where the files are being kind of parsed and then turned into our kind of own internal knowledge representation, which is everything from embedding and indexing to kind of how we kind of represent the data within the assistant. So you can scale this up to about 1,000 files today with the beta, with the goal as we move toward general availability of being able to handle basically an unlimited amount. All right, so now that the files are available, I'm going to switch over to the chat tab. This is a basic chat interface that exists to showcase the assistant and let you kind of debug and demo your assistants. And so since these are kind of financial records, I'm going to ask a question between Pepsi and Coke, who had the higher net income in the last quarter. And you'll see here that the assistant was able to kind of look at the documents in the database, kind of compare what it retrieved from the Coca-Cola report to what it was able to receive from the Pepsi report, and kind of conclude that Coca-Cola had a better quarter than the other with kind of references down to the page. So if we kind of click on this, they'll be able to see on page kind of 5, this is where the consolidated kind of numbers were being pulled from. All right, so that's the high level view of the assistant. You know, we're just getting started with this, and we would love to get many of you to kind of give it a shot. So the assistant beta waitlist is available through this URL, or you can kind of scan this QR code, and we're letting people in on a kind of rolling basis, and we'd love to kind of have you kind of try it and give us your feedback. All right, and I think we'll kind of pause there for Q&A, and maybe I'll hand it back to you, Gibbs, to help manage that.
Yeah, great. Thanks everyone for the update. So we do have quite a few questions that have started coming in here. So I think I will just read them out and then we can answer them live. Some of them have already been answered, I think. I'll reiterate the one in here that was answered just so everyone can have visibility, but someone asked about availability for EU region for GCP on serverless, and Anshul replied with, we are looking to make EU regions available following the first regions in US. So that is on the roadmap. Okay, so getting into some of the questions that are still open. So first one from Corey Arnold says, does the assistant architecture work with tools or structured output?
Yeah, so today in the first version of the beta, you can ask the assistant to provide answers in JSON or CSV, and we have seen success with that. There's this question of how you might integrate an assistant into a more agentic workflow. And the answer there would be to consider using an assistant as like another kind of generative output. So if you have some other system that is kind of able to call tools, you could consider the assistant one of those tools for now.
Okay, great. Okay, another question from Gordon Dry. He asks, how is this different than assistance from OpenAI?
Yeah, so assistant is focused on kind of three kind of focus areas. It's quality, and quality based on the idea of knowledge intensive tasks, which is the type of question answering over private data. And then it's about kind of security, and security focused on the idea that your data isn't being sent to these kind of third-party public services, and it can be revoked at any time. And third is kind of ease of use. The kind of API can be called in a few simple calls, and you can kind of see how easy it was to get kind of up and running within the console. So, OpenAI's kind of product is kind of targeting a much broader set of use cases. We've decided to focus in on these kind of knowledge intensive ones and make them as high quality and easy to use as possible.
Great. A lot of assistant questions. So it's going to be a lot for you, Nathan, but another one on assistants. Can we point it to an existing index rather than uploading a PDF or text as new documents?
The answer is no for now. I kind of ran over the architecture a little bit during the brief presentation, but a big part of what we're doing is kind of sophisticated knowledge representation for the documents as they're ingested. So there's more going on behind the scenes than just an index. So as for right now, you still need to be uploading the documents and reprocessing them for them to be used within the system.
I'm gonna try to bounce to a different area. So another question, are there plans for shareable backups, meaning will users be able to restore a collection from Pinecone to another vector database?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not today, but this is something that we can explore. One of the things that we've heard from customers is how do you take, create a backup perhaps, and then sort of export it out to a different system, right? Maybe S3 or something. So we are looking to explore that. But right now, the first pass is you create a backup and then you create an index out of that backup, right? And potentially move it between regions. And over time, we can figure out how to get it, to external third-party systems as well.
Okay. Great. Another question. So it says, I have been using Pinecone for more than a year and really would like to know if you're planning to provide an on-prem solution.
Yeah, so today, we don't have anything on the roadmap for on-prem solution, but we'd love to hear what exactly you're looking for, right? And this is potentially something that we could figure out. Are there specific requirements here? Are these regulatory requirements, security requirements, perhaps that we can meet with certain features that are on the roadmap for serverless itself? Or, we can potentially figure out if this is something that we do long-term.
Yeah, and as Anshul mentioned, alongside like those requirements that we're working to satisfy in our core cloud offering, This quarter, we are also going to be looking at tooling and investing in tooling that lets users work with local development to help with testing and other CI/CD workflows. So a lot of the core questions around the on-prem offering, we're looking to really satisfy with our cloud and local piece.
Great. There's quite a few more questions around Assistant. So I think I would like to upload CSV files in JSON format. Would Assistant be helpful for this?
The answer is those are both text formats, so they would be supported. Whether your use case is going to be satisfied is kind of a question of, it's not within the existing scope of the product, but we would love you to kind of sign up for the beta and give it a shot.
And what about can Assistant for documents, or is this Assistant only for the documents uploaded as demoed, or can I use it as an agent-like experience?
Right now, Assistant is optimized for this knowledge intensive question answering. I think you could try to use Assistant as part of a more agentic like experience where you treat the Assistant as kind of any other tool. But also serving agent-like workflows is something that is kind of top of mind for us, and it's something we'd like to explore further. So we'd love for you to kind of sign up for the beta as well and kind of give us your feedback on how you might want to use Assistant in that way.
Yeah. And what about managing PDFs with complex tabular data with Assistant?
Yeah, so as you saw from the quick demo I did, the information was retrieved from a tabular format. So there is support for tabular data within the Assistant itself. I think the challenge might be the definition of the word complex there, because tabular data can get very, very complex. And I think the question is that we're trying to do our best to handle these types of use cases explicitly. So we would love to kind of have anyone try complex tabular data and see if it works for you, because our goal is to be able to handle these types of complex technical documents with tabular data in the format you're describing. So please just give it a shot.
Great. Okay. And then I know I feel like there's a lot of these are Assistant, but I guess going back potentially to inference, Tej, if you could answer this, how are we choosing our models?
Yeah, we're first looking at supporting like a wide spread of use cases as the models come through. So first, starting with a multilingual model, supporting over 100 languages. We're then going to look into supporting multimodal models. Really, there's no easy service out there that lets you call an API and ingest your text, image, video data very easily. We see that as really strong, really like strong pain point that many of our customers experience, and would very much rather offload it to Pinecone and use our infrastructure to serve those type of models. So that's the core sort of path we're taking for our embedding models. Alongside that, though, we are focusing on delivering just like the same experience with multimodal models, re-rankers from open source to partnering with other proprietary vendors to deliver, again, through that same single API model to re-rank your results and dramatically increase your research relevancy.
Great. And a few more just coming in now about Assistant. Kind of, these should be quick answers, hopefully. But do we use an in-house LLM?
No, at present we're using GPT 4.0 for inference, but we intend to support other LLMs in the future. And Gibbs, maybe I'll just flow through the next two quickly as well. So okay. Yeah, the Assistant is currently available for free in the beta period, which is going to be a limited trial period. But for now, any users who are using the Assistant, the usage will be free. And finally, can I delete my documents from the Assistant? The answer is yes. Any kind of documents that you upload can be deleted, and the assistants themselves can be deleted as well.
And I think there's one more in here, an assistant. So it's, so we're already using Pinecone to store embeddings. Can we call your assistant API to our database?
Yeah, so I think we covered this one. I think it's similar to the question of, can I connect Assistant to my existing index? And the answer is no, for the ingestion reasons and knowledge representation reasons I mentioned earlier.
Okay, got it. And there's one last question in here. I think you may have different opinions from the various PMMs here, but at a high level, how are you thinking about pricing at each of the tiers in the context of the new features you have been rolling out and that are on the product roadmap? And how are they differentiated from your competitors? So I guess new features being maybe inference and assistant.
Yeah, I think, so as you may know, we already have a couple of tiers, right? So you have a free tier today that you can get started with, and you have a standard and an enterprise. I think some of the features that we talked about, especially security features, are more specifically geared towards enterprise customers. So that's where they'll land essentially, right? Not to say that we may not, we are not always looking at pricing to make sure that, it aligns with the value that customers want to get, right? As for inference and, assistance, maybe Nathan, you might want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think what we're looking to do here is kind of meet users where they are. There are other options kind of out in the market that provide set kind of processing models that are based on kind of usage in terms of tokens and usage in terms of storage, and we'll likely kind of adhere to kind of something like that, and want to make sure that we're pricing competitively and in a way that kind of captures the kind of value that I think users are getting out of the system.
Yeah, and for Pinecone inference, similarly following like a token-based approach. Again, what we're trying to deliver through inference is not only improvements on DevX and also enabling in the future better end-to-end latencies and performance, but also for any type of recall performance and cost performance, a model that works for you across those different matrices. So pricing will be very much tied to the value that you get out of it.
Awesome. Okay, and one last question in here. Best practice documentation for designing vector databases, consuming documents from different areas of the business, plus any access or authorization considerations.
That's a great question. We've actually launched a whole series on how to build RAG applications securely, whether it's internal, multi-tenant. We'll make sure someone links it in the chat. But there's a lot of content that I wish I had time to cover in terms of best practices around structuring your vector DB, managing ACOs and access permissions, and authorization on that note, as well as general like metadata structuring to enable your RAG use cases, as well as for efficient and better queries, as well as things like text search through hybrid, or like sparse support. So a lot of things I could cover, but I think it's best if we just link to the whole series that we have around how to best deliver this.
Yeah, Tej, do you want to just pull that up and put it in the chat for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, great. We actually managed to get through all of the questions that have come through. So I think, we'll stick around for another 5 minutes or so if other questions come up. But yeah, this was really great. I hope everyone here learned something new about what we're working on and excited by some of the things we have on the roadmap. And like everyone said on this call, we would love your feedback. So please continue to pass along any questions that you have, feedback as well. We would love to hear it, and make sure to keep an eye out for the next quarter's QPS. And in the meantime, we have many great resources on our website, monthly recaps, And again, yes, since this is being recorded, we will be sharing out the recording on our Pinecone YouTube channel. And then also for all the attendees from this session, I will be following up with a recording via email. Okay, so just another question. Well, thank you for sending a link. Okay, great. Yeah, and then it looks like Tej, I think you put that link in the chat, or it's working on that. So yeah, if you need to drop, feel free, but if you still have open questions, we'll be sticking around, like I said, and really appreciate everyone for joining and taking the time.
So I see one question is here around multilingual support for the assistant. The answer is sort of. The system was kind of built and tested around English, but if your kind of source documents and your kind of input queries are in other languages, the system should be able to support that. So this is one of the things we'd love to test in the beta as well. So please kind of try your multilingual use cases on a system.
All right. All right, well, it looks like the questions have kind of stopped coming in, so I think we can, oh, one more. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll sign off. Okay, there's one more coming in here that says, is there an option to delete vectors using metadata in a serverless environment?
So currently we have a couple of ways to sort of experience that same experience that we had with our pod indexes. And we're also definitely looking to provide support for this workflow around like using metadata for better record management. But in the meantime, we do have certain features like list, which allows you to list all your vectors. You can then retrieve the metadata and then use that to perform deletions. We also have list by prefix. So for those that have RAG use cases, a common example would be in the ID of your record itself, storing some reference to understanding what this record is. So you can do a list by prefix and then delete all the returned IDs or records. So while there are certain workarounds or certain paths to provide this experience around managing your records at bulk and deleting based off of certain attributes, we are definitely this quarter going to be investing deeper into that metadata experience as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Tej. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up now as no more questions have really started coming in. And if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to everyone on this call. And yeah, thanks again for the time, and we'll catch everyone next quarter with more updates.